Well, look, Joe Biden walked down that hallway and he was out of breath 15 seconds into his speech. And then he went on to tell us how Dr. Fauci is just amazing. What he forgot to tell the American people was Dr. Fauci 1 year ago this weekend was telling people don't be walking around with masks on. It's not necessary. What Joe Biden forgot to tell people was it was only because of the Trump administration through Operation Warp Speed that we actually have a resolution in place now. And Joe Biden also forgot to tell people that when he walked into the White House, Donald Trump's administration was already inoculating millions of people on a regular basis, or at least 1 million people on a regular basis almost every day. Joe Biden doesn't want to say those things. He also doesn't want to talk about the policies that the government took away our liberties. The government said, don't go to church. The government said, don't worship, don't connect with other people. And then they said, we're going to be your solution. The truth is, I'm very afraid because the government has been the problem for too long and not the solution.
Yeah, Biden didn't target who was responsible for that pandemic, China, our enemy. They caused this pandemic, but he did blame we, the people, Americans, suggesting that those of us who call out China's lies and malign activity are inspiring hate. Watch this.
States pitted against one another instead of working with each other. Vicious hate crimes against Asian Americans who've been attacked, harassed, blamed, and scapegoated. They're forced to live in fear for their lives just walking down streets in America. It's wrong, it's un-American, and it must stop.
Corey, it seems to me that Mr. Biden and his administration really want people like me to back off my criticisms of communist China. What do you think?
Look, we should never stop our criticisms of communist China, from the intellectual property theft that they continue to do to us to the currency manipulation. Look, there's no question. Secretary Pompeo, former Secretary Pompeo, said it very clearly. This virus emanated from the Wuhan laboratory. It is now unambiguous about that. What it did is it spread across this planet. China has no responsibility for it. They still won't let inspectors go in there. They never told anybody it was coming. And so they are fully responsible for a global pandemic, which has now claimed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives across this globe. Why wouldn't we want to hold them accountable?
Wanted to get you in politics, too. The GOP Surrender Caucus, they have a growing animosity toward President Trump and President Trump's voters and supporters. What do you make of Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and Fred Upton and these people? What do you have to? What's your take on them? What do you have to say to them?
Well, I look forward to beating them in their primaries in this upcoming 2022 election cycle. When you look at Anthony Gonzalez, President Trump has already endorsed Max Miller, a former staffer of his, who's running against him. So Max Miller's going to win that election. I believe Catalina Luff, who the president has spoken with, is going to beat Adam Kinzinger in Illinois. I believe we're going to change the rules in Wyoming so that should multiple candidates run, it'll be the top two vote getters who go through to a runoff, and that means Liz Cheney has to run one-on-one on her failed record in the state of Wyoming against Donald Trump. Look, I look forward to that, and whether it's my organization called FightBackNowAmerica.com or as the chairman of the President's Super PAC, we are out raising money right now to play in these districts, and this cancel culture of deciding that the president is not the head of the party, that the America First agenda is not what you stand up for. There are consequences for that in Republican primary elections, and we're going to come find you.
Darn straight, there ought to be consequences. Wanted to turn now to the crisis at the border. Biden unraveling President Trump's border policies, creating a major disaster on the southern border. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says concerns about the border are just a distraction. Listen.
I guess their Dr. Seuss approach didn't work for them, so now they've had to change the subject.
A little bit of it. She doesn't, of course, she hasn't been down to the border, nor does Miss Pelosi actually care to know what's really going on and the harm that's being done to everyday Americans. What do you say?
Well, we canceled Dr. Seuss. Isn't that the case? I mean, look, they had to take Dr. Seuss because he was too much of a racist off of the New York Times bestsellers list and remove his books from Amazon. You know, you can still go buy Hitler's book on Amazon, but you can't buy Dr. Seuss. So for Nancy Pelosi to draw that analogy is outrageous. What we see is the double standard in the media. When Donald Trump was separating kids who were coming across this border because they weren't coming with their families and putting them in detention facilities, he was determined. He was called a number of names, but now, hey, don't worry about it. We know that the southern border is overrun. We see Border Patrol agents every day on television talking about how it is a massive influx of individuals coming with Joe Biden shirts on, and we have nowhere to put these people. But Joe Biden and the Biden administration refuse to acknowledge that this is a crisis at the border. It is a direct attack on our sovereignty as a country, and there is no other country in the world that simply allows you to step across into it with no path forward and say, I now want to be a U.S. citizen. And what we're seeing in Texas, and we saw it last week, was a number of these individuals came across the border. They tested positive for COVID-19, and under the Obama administration rules, they were allowed to just permeate their way into the rest of the country somewhere with the likelihood of them ever returning for a court hearing.